In a distant galaxy, on a planet known as Zephyria, a human Deathworlder named Axel Riker arrived for a diplomatic mission. Zephyria was a harsh and unforgiving world, with a toxic atmosphere, extreme temperatures, and frequent ion storms that ravaged the planet's surface. The local alien species, the Zephyrians, had evolved to withstand these conditions, but they were in awe of the legendary Deathworlders, humans who thrived in the most hostile environments imaginable. Axel stepped out of his starship, his adaptive exosuit automatically adjusting to the planet's atmosphere. The Zephyrians gathered around him, their insectoid eyes wide with curiosity and admiration. They had heard tales of the Deathworlders' incredible resilience and their ability to survive in conditions that would kill most other species in the galaxy. As Axel made his way to the Zephyrian council chambers, he couldn't help but notice the looks of reverence and fear on the aliens' faces. He had grown accustomed to this reaction. Deathworlders were known throughout the galaxy for their physical prowess, quick thinking, and indomitable spirit. The Zephyrian Council greeted Axel with a mixture of apprehension and respect. They had requested his presence to discuss a matter of great importance, a potential alliance between their species and the humans. The Zephyrians had long been isolated from the rest of the galaxy, their harsh world making it difficult for them to establish relationships with other civilizations. Axel listened intently as the council members explained their situation. Zephyria was rich in valuable resources, but the planet's hazardous environment made it nearly impossible for them to exploit these resources on their own. They hoped that an alliance with the humans would provide them with the technology and expertise needed to improve their lives and secure their future. As the meeting progressed, Axel couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The council members seemed nervous, and their eyes kept darting to the windows as if they were expecting something to happen. Suddenly, a deafening alarm pierced the air, and the council chambers were bathed in an eerie red light. The Zephyrians began to panic, their voices rising in terror as they pointed to the sky. Axel followed their gaze and saw a sight that would have struck fear into the hearts of most beings. A massive firestorm was descending upon the city, its swirling vortex of flames and debris consuming everything in its path. But Axel was no ordinary being. He was a Deathworlder, and he had faced far worse than this. With a calm and steady voice, he addressed the council members. "Do not fear. I will help you through this crisis. We must work together to ensure the safety of your people." The Zephyrians looked at Axel with a mixture of hope and disbelief. They had never encountered a being so confident and composed in the face of such danger. As the firestorm grew closer, Axel began to formulate a plan, his mind racing with possibilities and calculations. He knew that the firestorm was no ordinary weather event. It was a product of Zephyria's unique atmospheric conditions and the intense ionic activity that plagued the planet. But Axel also knew that he had the knowledge and the skills to turn this crisis into an opportunity. As the council members watched in awe, Axel strode to the window and gazed out at the approaching firestorm. A smile played across his lips, and he muttered under his breath, "Perfect, just the kind of training weather I need." The Zephyrians exchanged confused glances, unsure of what the human meant, but they had no time to question him, for the firestorm was almost upon them. They could only hope that Axel Riker, the legendary Deathworlder, would be able to save them from the fury of their own world. As the firestorm engulfed the city, the Zephyrians cowered in fear, seeking shelter wherever they could find it. But Axel Riker stood tall and unafraid, his exosuit shielding him from the searing heat and the toxic fumes that filled the air. With a determined stride, Axel made his way through the chaotic streets, his eyes scanning the environment for any signs of danger. The firestorm was unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever seen, a maelstrom of fire and electricity that seemed to have a mind of its own. Axel knew that he had to act fast. The longer the firestorm raged, the more damage it would cause, and the harder it would be to protect the Zephyrians. He activated his suit's advanced sensors, scanning the storm for any weaknesses or patterns that he could exploit. As he analyzed the data, Axel's mind raced with possibilities. He had encountered similar storms on other worlds, but never one of this magnitude. The Zephyrians' unique atmospheric conditions had created a perfect storm of ionic activity and thermal energy, fueling the Firestorm's destructive power. But Axel was not one to back down from a challenge. He had trained his entire life to face the most extreme conditions the universe could throw at him. And now, on Zephyria, he would put those skills to the ultimate test. With a flick of his wrist, Axel activated his suit's shield generator, creating a bubble of protective energy around him. He then set off into the heart of the firestorm. His eyes narrowed in concentration as he navigated the treacherous terrain. The heat was intense, even for a Deathworlder. The air crackled with electricity, and the wind howled like a wounded beast. But Axel pressed on, his suit's advanced systems working overtime to keep him safe and functional. As he pushed deeper into the storm, Axel began to notice something strange. The firestorm seemed to be moving with a purpose, as if it were being guided by some unseen force. He had never encountered anything like it before, and the thought both excited and unnerved him. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck the ground near Axel, sending a shower of sparks and debris flying in all directions. He barely had time to react before another bolt struck, this time even closer. It was clear that the storm was targeting him specifically. But Axel was not one to be intimidated. He activated his suit's propulsion system and launched himself into the air, dodging the lightning bolts with incredible agility. As he soared above the firestorm, he caught a glimpse of something in the distance, a group of Zephyrians huddled together in a makeshift shelter. Without hesitation, Axel changed course and rocketed towards the shelter, his suit's sensors guiding him through the chaos. As he approached, he could see the fear and desperation in the Zephyrians' eyes. They had given up hope of survival, resigned to their fate. But Axel was not about to let them die. With a burst of speed, he landed in front of the shelter and activated his suit's shield generator once more, creating a protective bubble around the Zephyrians. The aliens looked up at him in awe, their eyes wide with disbelief. They had never seen anything like this before, a being who could stand against the fury of their world and emerge unscathed. Axel smiled reassuringly at them, his voice calm and confident as he spoke. "Do not fear. I will get you to safety. Follow me and stay close." And with that, he led the Zephyrians out of the shelter and into the heart of the firestorm, his suit's shields protecting them from the searing heat and the crackling electricity. They had no choice but to trust in the Deathworlder's strength and skill, for he was their only hope of survival. As Axel Riker led the group of Zephyrians through the raging firestorm, he couldn't help but feel a sense of exhilaration. This was what he lived for, the thrill of facing impossible odds and emerging victorious. The Zephyrians, on the other hand, were terrified. They had never experienced anything like this before, and the sight of the human Deathworlder striding confidently through the chaos was both awe-inspiring and unnerving. Axel's suit's sensors scanned the environment constantly, searching for any signs of survivors or potential escape routes. The firestorm seemed to be growing stronger by the minute, and he knew that they had to act fast if they wanted to make it out alive. Suddenly, his sensors picked up a faint life sign in the distance. It was weak, but it was there. Without hesitation, Axel changed course and headed towards the signal, the Zephyrians struggling to keep up with his pace. As they approached the source of the signal, Axel's eyes widened in surprise. There, huddled beneath a pile of rubble, was a young Zephyrian child. The child was injured and barely conscious, but still alive. Axel quickly assessed the situation. The child was trapped beneath a heavy piece of debris, and the firestorm was closing in fast. He knew that he had to act quickly if he wanted to save the child's life. With a burst of strength, Axel lifted the debris off the child and scooped them up in his arms. The child was light and fragile, and Axel knew that he had to be careful not to cause any further injury. As he turned to rejoin the group, Axel noticed something strange. The firestorm seemed to be changing direction, as if it were being drawn towards something in the distance. He focused his suit's sensors on the anomaly and realized with a start that it was a massive energy signature, unlike anything he had ever seen before. Axel's mind raced with possibilities. Could this be the key to stopping the firestorm? Or was it something even more dangerous? He didn't have time to ponder the question. The firestorm was getting closer, and he had to get the Zephyrians to safety. With the child still cradled in his arms, Axel led the group towards the energy signature, his suit's shield straining against the intense heat and electricity. As they approached the source of the energy, Axel's eyes widened in amazement. There, nestled in the heart of the firestorm, was a massive alien device. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before, a swirling vortex of energy and light that seemed to be drawing the firestorm towards it like a magnet. Axel knew that he had to act fast. If he could find a way to shut down the device, he might be able to stop the firestorm in its tracks. But he also knew that tampering with alien technology was incredibly dangerous, especially when he had no idea what it was capable of. The Zephyrians looked to Axel for guidance, their eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. They had placed their trust in the human Deathworlder, and now their lives were in his hands. Axel took a deep breath and activated his suit's scanning system. He had to find a way to interface with the alien device, to understand its workings, and find a way to shut it down safely. As he worked, the firestorm raged around them, the heat and electricity growing more intense by the second. But Axel remained focused, his mind racing with calculations and possibilities. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Axel's suit beeped in confirmation. He had found a way to interface with the device, to shut it down and stop the firestorm. But as he prepared to make his move, Axel hesitated. He knew that shutting down the device could have unforeseen consequences, that it could potentially unleash an even greater danger upon the planet. He looked at the Zephyrians, at the child still cradled in his arms, and made his decision. He had to take the risk, to do whatever it took to save them. With a final nod of determination, Axel stepped forward and began to interface with the alien device, his suit's systems working overtime to keep him safe and functional. The fate of Zephyria, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on his shoulders. Axel Riker, the Deathworlder, stood before the alien device, his mind racing with possibilities. The device was unlike anything he had ever encountered before, and he knew that interfacing with it would be a risky endeavor. But with the firestorm raging around them, and the lives of the Zephyrians hanging in the balance, he had no choice but to take the chance. As he examined the device more closely, Axel noticed strange symbols etched into its surface. They were unlike any language he had ever seen before, but his suit's advanced translation software quickly got to work deciphering their meaning. The symbols seemed to describe a powerful energy source, one that could be harnessed to fuel incredible feats of technology. Axel's eyes widened as he realized the implications of this discovery. If he could find a way to harness this energy, he might be able to not only stop the firestorm, but also provide the Zephyrians with a means to improve their lives and secure their future. But first, he had to find a way to shut down the device safely. Axel's suit scanned the device's internal workings, searching for any weaknesses or vulnerabilities that he could exploit. The technology was advanced, far beyond anything he had ever seen before, but Axel was determined to find a way. As he worked, the firestorm continued to rage around them, the heat and electricity growing more intense by the second. The Zephyrians huddled together in fear, their eyes fixed on Axel as he worked to save them. Suddenly, Axel's suit beeped in warning. The device was beginning to overload, its energy levels spiking to dangerous levels. If he didn't act fast, the device could explode, taking them all with it. Axel's mind raced with calculations, his fingers flying over the device's controls as he worked to shut it down safely. He could feel the heat of the firestorm on his back, the electricity crackling in the air around him, but he refused to let it distract him from his task. Finally, with a final burst of effort, Axel managed to shut down the device. The firestorm began to dissipate, the heat and electricity fading away, as the device's energy levels stabilized. The Zephyrians let out a cheer of relief, their eyes shining with gratitude as they looked to Axel as their savior. But Axel knew that their work was far from over. The device was still active, its energy levels still dangerously high. If he couldn't find a way to harness that energy safely, it could still pose a threat to the planet and its inhabitants. Axel turned to the Zephyrians, his voice calm and confident as he spoke. "I need your help," he said. "This device is unlike anything I've ever seen before, and I can't shut it down completely on my own. But if we work together, we might be able to find a way to harness its energy safely and use it to improve your lives." The Zephyrians looked at each other uncertainly, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. They had never worked with alien technology before, and the thought of tampering with something so powerful was daunting. But Axel was not about to give up. He had faced impossible odds before, and he knew that with the right plan and the right team, anything was possible. "Trust me," he said, his eyes shining with determination. "Together, we can do this. We can save your planet and secure your future." The Zephyrians looked at Axel, their eyes shining with hope and admiration. They had never met a being like him before, someone who was willing to risk everything to help them. With a final nod of agreement, the Zephyrians stepped forward, ready to work alongside the Deathworlder to harness the power of the alien device and save their world. Axel smiled, his heart swelling with pride and determination. This was what he lived for, the chance to make a difference in the lives of others. And with the help of the Zephyrians, he knew that he could do just that. Axel Riker, the Deathworlder, stood before the alien device, his mind racing with possibilities. He had managed to shut down the device and stop the firestorm. But he knew that their work was far from over. The device was still active, its energy levels dangerously high, and if they couldn't find a way to harness that energy safely, it could still pose a threat to the planet and its inhabitants. Axel turned to the Zephyrians, his voice calm and confident as he spoke. "I have a plan," he said, "but it's going to be risky. We need to find a way to harness the energy from this device and use it to power your cities and technology. But if we're not careful, we could end up causing even more damage than the firestorm." The Zephyrians looked at each other uncertainly, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. They had never worked with alien technology before, and the thought of tampering with something so powerful was daunting. But Axel was not about to give up. He had faced impossible odds before, and he knew that with the right plan and the right team, anything was possible. "Here's what we're going to do," he said, his eyes shining with determination. "We're going to create a feedback loop between the device and your city's power grid. If we can regulate the energy flow and prevent any surges or overloads, we should be able to safely harness the device's power and use it to improve your lives." The Zephyrians nodded in agreement, their eyes shining with hope and admiration. They had never met a being like Axel before, someone who was willing to risk everything to help them. Axel set to work, his suit's advanced systems working overtime to analyze the device's energy output and create a stable feedback loop. It was a delicate process, one that required precision and careful calculation. One wrong move could cause the device to overload, unleashing a catastrophic explosion that could level the entire city. As he worked, Axel couldn't help but think back to his training as a Deathworlder. He had faced countless challenges and obstacles in his life, from the harshest environments to the deadliest enemies, but nothing had prepared him for the sheer complexity and danger of the task at hand. Hours turned into days as Axel and the Zephyrians worked tirelessly to create the feedback loop. They barely stopped to rest or eat, their eyes fixed on the device as they monitored its energy levels and made constant adjustments to the system. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the feedback loop was complete. Axel stepped back, his eyes shining with pride and satisfaction as he watched the device's energy flow smoothly into the city's power grid. The Zephyrians let out a cheer of joy and relief, their eyes wide with amazement as they watched their city come to life like never before. The streets were suddenly illuminated with a soft, steady glow, and the air hummed with the sound of advanced technology coming to life. Axel smiled, his heart swelling with pride and happiness. He had done it. He had saved the Zephyrians and given them a chance at a better future. But even as he celebrated their success, Axel couldn't shake the feeling that their work was not yet done. The device was still a mystery, its true origins and purpose unknown, and he knew that there were still countless challenges and dangers waiting for them in the days and weeks to come. But for now, Axel was content to bask in the glow of their victory. He had proven once again that even in the face of impossible odds, a Deathworlder could rise to the challenge and emerge victorious. And as he looked out over the city, its streets alive with the energy of the alien device, Axel knew that he would do whatever it took to protect the Zephyrians and ensure their future. For he was a Deathworlder, and that was what he was born to do. Axel Riker stood triumphantly before the alien device, the Zephyrians cheering and celebrating around him. The Deathworlder had done the impossible, harnessing the power of the Firestorm and using it to bring new life to the city. But even as the Zephyrians reveled in their victory, Axel couldn't shake the feeling that their work was far from over. As he stared at the device, its energy flowing smoothly into the city's power grid, Axel couldn't help but marvel at the sheer complexity and power of the technology. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before, even in his many years as a Deathworlder. Suddenly, one of the Zephyrians approached Axel, their eyes wide with curiosity and admiration. "How did you know how to do all of this?" they asked, gesturing to the device and the city around them. "We've never seen anything like it before." Axel chuckled, a wry smile spreading across his face. "Well, to be honest, this is nothing compared to some of the things I've seen out there in the universe. You'd be surprised what kind of crazy weather and technology you can run into when you're a Deathworlder." The Zephyrian's eyes widened even further, their mouth dropping open in shock. "You mean, this kind of thing is normal for you?" Axel shrugged, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "I wouldn't say normal, exactly. But let's just say that when you've been through as many crazy situations as I have, you learn to expect the unexpected." The Zephyrians shook their head in disbelief, their mind reeling with the implications of Axel's words. They had always known that Deathworlders were a breed apart, but they had never fully understood just how different they really were. As Axel continued to work on the device, fine-tuning the feedback loop and monitoring its energy output, he couldn't help but think back to some of the other challenges he had faced in his life. There was the time he had been stranded on a planet with a toxic atmosphere and had to find a way to survive using only the limited resources at his disposal, or the time he had been captured by a hostile alien race and had to fight his way out using nothing but his wits and his fists. But even those experiences paled in comparison to the sheer scale and complexity of the task at hand. Harnessing the power of an alien device and using it to save an entire planet was a challenge unlike any he had ever faced before. As the hours turned into days and the days turned into weeks, Axel and the Zephyrians worked tirelessly to stabilize the device and integrate it into the city's infrastructure. They faced countless setbacks and challenges along the way, from unexpected energy surges to malfunctioning equipment. But through it all, Axel remained calm and focused, his mind always racing with new ideas and solutions. He drew upon every ounce of his training and experience as a Deathworlder, using his knowledge of advanced technology and his understanding of alien cultures to guide the Zephyrians through the process. And slowly but surely, the city began to transform before their very eyes. The streets were suddenly alive with the hum of advanced machinery, and the air crackled with the energy of the alien device. The Zephyrians marveled at the changes, their eyes wide with wonder and excitement. But even as they celebrated their success, Axel couldn't shake the feeling that their work was far from over. He knew that the device was still a mystery, its true origins and purpose unknown. And he knew that there were still countless challenges and dangers waiting for them in the days and weeks to come. But for now, Axel was content to bask in the glow of their victory. He had proven once again that even in the face of impossible odds, a Deathworlder could rise to the challenge and emerge victorious. And as he looked out over the city, its streets alive with the energy of the alien device, Axel knew that he would do whatever it took to protect the Zephyrians and ensure their future. For he was a Deathworlder, and that was what he was born to do. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, Axel Riker and the Zephyrians worked tirelessly to integrate the alien device into their city's infrastructure. The process was long and arduous, filled with countless challenges and setbacks, but through it all, Axel remained steadfast in his determination to see the project through to the end. The Zephyrians marveled at the changes that were taking place before their very eyes. The once quiet streets of their city were now alive with the hum of advanced machinery, and the air crackled with the energy of the alien device. They had never seen anything like it before, and they couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at the sheer scale of the transformation. But even as they celebrated their success, Axel couldn't shake the feeling that something was not quite right. He had been monitoring the device's energy output closely, and he had noticed some strange fluctuations and anomalies that he couldn't quite explain. At first, he had dismissed them as simple glitches or errors in the system. But as time went on, the anomalies became more frequent and more pronounced, and Axel began to suspect that there was something more sinister at work. He spent long hours poring over the data, trying to make sense of the patterns and fluctuations. And slowly but surely, a picture began to emerge. The device was not just a simple power source, but a complex and highly advanced piece of technology with its own agenda and purpose. Axel knew that he had to act fast. If he didn't find a way to control the device and harness its power safely, it could spell disaster for the Zephyrians and their city. He worked tirelessly, pushing himself to the brink of exhaustion as he searched for a solution. He drew upon every ounce of his training and experience as a Deathworlder, using his knowledge of advanced technology and his understanding of alien cultures to guide him through the process. And finally, after weeks of trial and error, Axel found the key. He discovered a way to modify the device's programming, to override its default settings and bring it under his control. It was a risky move, one that could have easily backfired and caused even more damage than before. But Axel knew that he had no choice. He had to take the chance, to do whatever it took to protect the Zephyrians and ensure their future. With a final burst of effort, Axel uploaded the new programming to the device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly but surely, the device began to power down, its energy levels dropping back to safe and manageable levels. The Zephyrians let out a cheer of joy and relief, their eyes wide with amazement, as they watched their city return to normal. They had never seen anything like it before, and they couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude and admiration for the Deathworlder who had saved them. But even as they celebrated their victory, Axel couldn't shake the feeling that their work was far from over. He knew that the device was still a mystery, its true origins and purpose unknown. And he knew that there were still countless challenges and dangers waiting for them in the days and weeks to come. But for now, Axel was content to bask in the glow of their triumph. He had proven once again that even in the face of impossible odds, a Deathworlder could rise to the challenge and emerge victorious. And as he looked out over the city, its streets alive with the energy of the alien device, Axel knew that he would do whatever it took to protect the Zephyrians and ensure their future. For he was a Deathworlder, and that was what he was born to do. But little did Axel know that his actions had set in motion a chain of events that would change the course of history forever. For the device was not just a simple power source, but a gateway to a world beyond their wildest dreams. And as Axel and the Zephyrians soon discovered, the true adventure was only just beginning. As Axel Riker prepared to depart from Zephyria, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. He had arrived on this alien world as a stranger, a Deathworlder among a species that had never seen anything like him before. But through his bravery, his ingenuity, and his unwavering commitment to the greater good, he had become something more, a hero, a savior, and a friend. The Zephyrians gathered around him as he made his way to his ship, their eyes shining with gratitude and admiration. They had never known a being like Axel before, someone who could face down the most terrifying challenges and emerge victorious. Someone who could harness the power of the universe itself to bring hope and salvation to their world. Axel smiled as he shook their hands and accepted their thanks, his heart swelling with emotion. He had always known that being the Deathworlder was a great responsibility, a burden that few could bear. But in that moment, as he looked out over the crowd of Zephyrians, he realized that it was also a great honor, a privilege that he would cherish for the rest of his days. As he boarded his ship and prepared to leave Zephyria behind, Axel couldn't help but reflect on all that had happened during his time on the planet. He had faced down a firestorm that would have sent lesser beings running in terror, and he had emerged unscathed. He had discovered an alien device of unimaginable power, and he had found a way to harness its energy for the greater good. And he had forged bonds of friendship and trust with a species that had once been strangers to him, bonds that would last a lifetime. But even as he reveled in his triumphs, Axel knew that his work was far from over. The universe was a vast and dangerous place, filled with countless challenges and mysteries that he had yet to unravel. And he knew that, as a Deathworlder, it was his duty and his calling to face those challenges head-on, to protect the innocent and defend the weak, no matter the cost. As his ship lifted off from the surface of Zephyria and began its journey back out into the stars, Axel couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and anticipation for what lay ahead. He had no idea what the future might hold, what new worlds and civilizations he might encounter, what new dangers and adventures might await him. But he knew one thing for certain: he was ready for whatever the universe might throw his way. For he was Axel Riker, the Deathworlder, the hero of Zephyria, and the champion of the stars, and he would never back down from a challenge, no matter how great or how small. As he watched the planet of Zephyria recede into the distance, Axel couldn't help but smile to himself. The Zephyrians had called him a hero, a savior, a friend. But to Axel, he was simply doing what he had always done, following his heart, using his skills and his courage to make the universe a better place, one world at a time. And as he looked out at the vast expanse of space before him, Axel knew that his journey was only just beginning. There were countless worlds out there waiting to be explored, countless civilizations waiting to be saved, countless adventures waiting to be had. And Axel Riker, the Deathworlder, the hero of Zephyria, and the champion of the stars, was ready to meet them all head-on. For he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter what dangers he might face, he would always be ready to rise to the occasion, to fight for what was right, and to make the universe a better place for all who called it home. And so, with a final glance back at the world he had saved and the friends he had made, Axel Riker set his sights on the horizon and blasted off into the unknown, ready for whatever lay ahead. For he was a Deathworlder, and the universe was his to explore, to protect, and to defend, now and forever.